Welcome to the new podcast, In the Garden with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Ladner. I will aim to bring you top quality information on how to save open pollinated seeds, grow a garden, and preserve what you grow. Every Wednesday, I'll be sharing practical tips and techniques to help you on your journey to food security. Join me as I preserve the abundance of produce that my garden provides. Learn new ways of putting food away for the winter and some old ways that are from another century. You can find this podcast on Shopify and at my website. Come on, let's go wander down to the garden and awaken the dreams, history, and love that is held inside every seed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I hope everyone's been having a great week. We've got a bunch of snow coming down here, but it's better than the rain. We've been having so much rain. It's the El Nino. But anyway, today I searched through my bookshelf and I was pulling out all the Anastasia, all the Ringing Cedars series, looking for the part where she talks about how to garden, and I couldn't find it. And so funny, I went to Chat GDP4 and I said, where in the series is it? And Chat said it's in book 1. And so I could have just pulled out one book instead of pulling them all out. So here we have, it's in chapter 11. And this is from number 1 of the Ringing Cedars series by Vladimir Meager. And this chapter is titled Advice from Anastasia. And I'm just going to get into it because I think there's quite a bit to read. And so I guess we'll just get started because I'm actually very interested. I haven't read this since, I believe I read it in 2009. It's when I first got to the farm and when I first started gardening. And I had no idea this was in here. I can't even remember. I think I was a raw vegan. And I believe I was at a raw food restaurant in Guelph one time. And a woman at the table next to me said, well, have you read the Ringing Cedars series? Because I was talking about gardening. I remember I was on the farm and Neroli was really little. And this woman just struck up a conversation. I'm just remembering this now. And when I talked about gardening, she's like, oh, well, you've read the Ringing Cedars. And I said, no, I've never even heard about it. And she said, I'm really shocked. And, it's an excellent series. So I went and bought it. The next day, I think I went and got the first book. And anyway, I plowed through them. So I was at the bookstore like every couple days buying the next one in the series. And then I think there was supposed to be another one coming out at the very end. Maybe it's out already. But anyway, I highly recommend it if you haven't ever gone through these. So here we go. The chapter 11 is titled Advice from Anastasia, the Seed as Physician. Anastasia and I should give some background. This book is sort of like Vladimir Meager talking. It's like, I can't quite remember if it's like he's narrating it, but from what I do remember, like it was so long ago, I think he's got a different style of writing. So I'm going to read exactly how it is. And there we go. There's your background on it. Anastasia has stated, every seed you plant contains within itself an enormous amount of information about the universe. Nothing made by human hands can compare with this information, either in size or accuracy. Through the help of these data, the seed knows the exact time down to the millisecond when it is to come alive, to grow, what juices it is to take from the earth, how to make use of the rays of the celestial bodies, the sun, moon, and stars, what it is to grow into, what fruit to bring forth. These fruits are designed to sustain man's life more powerfully and effectively than any manufactured drugs of the present or future. These fruits are capable of counteracting and withstanding any disease of the human body. But to this end, the seed must know about the human condition. So during the maturation process, it can satiate its fruit with the right correlation of substances to heal a specific individual of his disease. If needed, he has it or is prone to it. In order for the seed of a cucumber, tomato, or any other plant grown in one's plot to have such information, the following steps are necessary. Before planting, put into your mouth one or more little seeds. Hold them in your mouth, under the tongue, for at least 9 minutes. Then place the seed between the palms of your hands and hold it there for about 30 seconds. During this time, it is important that you be standing barefoot on the spot of the earth where you will be planting it. Open your hands and carefully raise the seed which you are holding to your mouth. Then blow on it lightly, warming it with your breath, and the wee little seed will know everything that is within you. Then you need to hold it with your hands open another 30 seconds, presenting the seed to the celestial bodies. And the seed will determine the moment of its awakening. The planets will all help it, and they will give the sprouts the light they need to produce fruit, especially for you. After that, you may plant the seed in the ground. In no case should you water it right off, so as not to wash away the saliva which is now covering it, along with other information that the seed will take in. It can be watered 3 days after planting. So this is really important. I knew there was more to the whole thing. I'm glad I'm reading this. The planting must be done on days appropriate to each vegetable. People already know this from the lunar calendar. In the absence of watering, a premature planting is not as harmful as an overdue planting. It is not a good idea to pull up all the weeds growing in the vicinity of the sprouts. At least one kind should be left in place. The weeds can be cut back. According to Anastasia, the seed is thus able to take in information about the person who plants it, and then, during the cultivation of its fruit, it will pick up from the universe and the earth the maximum amount of energies needed for the given individual. And so it's just a note here. There's a footnote. Please note that store-bought seeds available in America and elsewhere in the civilized world are often coated with rat poison for ease of storage and should never be used for planting in the way recommended here. Well, they shouldn't be used for planting anyway. Like, don't buy treated seeds. Don't buy seeds with coating. And you'll know because they've got that color on it. If I never, because you're just putting you're poisoning the plant. Anyway, if you wish to follow the planting advice set forth herein, be sure to use your own seeds or procure organic seeds from a reputable producer. Okay. All right. So the weeds should not be disposed of completely, as they have their own appointed function. Some weeds serve to protect the plant from disease, while others give supplemental information. During the cultivation time, it is vital to communicate with the plant, and it is desirable to approach it and touch it during a full moon at least once during its growth period. Anastasia maintains that the fruit cultivated from the seed in this manner and consumed by the individual who cultivated it is capable not only of curing him of all diseases of the flesh whatsoever, but also of significantly retarding the aging process. I love that. Rescuing him from harmful habits, tremendously increasing his mental abilities, and giving him a sense of inner peace. The fruit will have the most effective influence when consumed no later than 3 days after harvesting. And for my listeners, that's one of the reasons why I moved to the farm when I was a raw vegan and my daughter was a toddler, was because eating raw food was not good enough for me anymore. I wanted to eat it alive. And I found out that fruit is alive for, after you harvest it, it's still alive for 3 days. And I wanted to be eating all living foods. So that's how I got to the farm. And then that's how I got to saving seeds. So, but I didn't know this when I got this book. I found that information somewhere else. Um, so, anyway, the above mentioned steps should be taken with a variety of plant species in the garden plot. It is not necessary to plant a whole bed of cucumbers, tomatoes, etc. in this manner. Just a few plants each is enough. The fruit of the plants grown like this will be distinguished from the other plants of the same species, not only in taste. If analyzed, it will be seen that they are also distinct in terms of the substances they contain. When planting the seedlings, it is important to soften the dirt in the excavated hole with one's fingers and bare toes and spit into the hole. Responding to my question, why the feet? Anastasia explained that through perspiration from one's feet come substances, toxins no doubt, containing information about bodily diseases. This information is taken in by the seedlings. They transmit it to the fruit, which will thus enable to counteract diseases. Anastasia recommended walking around the plot barefoot from time to time. And some of us walk around our garden barefoot all the time. What kind of plants should one cultivate? Anastasia replied, the same variety that exists in most garden plots is quite sufficient. Raspberries, currants, gooseberries, cucumbers, tomatoes, wild strawberries, any kind of apple tree. Sweet or sour cherries and flowers would be good too. It does not make any difference how many plants of each kind there are or how big their area of cultivation is. There are a few definites without which it would be difficult to imagine a full energy microclimate. One of them is sunflowers, at least one plant. There should also be 1.5 or 2 square meters of cereal grains, rye or wheat, for example. And be sure to leave an island of at least 2 square meters for wild growing herbs, ones that are not planted manually. If you have not left any of them growing around your dacha, and that's what they call these little 2 hectare plots where everybody gardens in Russia, you can bring in some turf from the forest, and maybe down below I'll just put some information. If you want to look at what a dacha is, if I can find some more stuff. Because I don't want to start explaining it now because I'll probably butcher it. Like I sort of remember, I remember, but I don't want to give information and miss stuff. Because I mean, look how much is missing from, and I forgot so much of this stuff. Like this is very important. Okay. Let's see. So we're at the dacha. You can bring in some turf from the forest and thereby create an island of natural growth. I asked Anastasia if it were necessary to plant these definites directly in the plot, if there were already some wild growing herbs close by, say, just beyond the fence, and this is how she responded. It is not just the variety of plants that is significant, but also how they are planted, the direct communication with them that allows them to take in the information they need. I have already told you about one of the methods of planting. That is the basic one. It is essential to infuse the little patch of nature surrounding you with information about yourself. Only then will the healing effect and the life giving support of your body be significantly higher than from the fruit alone. Out in the natural wilds, as you call them, and nature really is not wild, it's just unfamiliar to you. There are a great many plants that can help cure all, and I mean all existing diseases. These plants have been designed for that purpose, but man has lost or almost lost the ability to identify them. I told Anastasia that we already have many specialized pharmacies which deal in her healing herbs, just as there are many physicians and many medicine men who make a profession out of her herb treatments, and she replied, "The chief physician is your own body. Right from the start, it was endowed with the ability to know which herb should be used and when, how to eat and breathe. It is capable of warding off disease even before its outward manifestation, and nobody else can replace your body, for this is your personal physician, given individually to you by God, and personal to only to you. I am telling you how to provide it with the opportunity to act beneficially on your behalf. If you make connections with the plants in your garden, they will take care of you and cure you. They will make the right diagnosis all by themselves and will prepare the most effective medicine, especially designed for you." Now we're in a part, it's called Who Gets Stung by Bees? One time, I had six beehives when I was in Ontario, and they were at the very back of the garden. And I thought I was really good at beekeeping. And so I stopped wearing the bee hat. I only had a bee hat, and I'd wear the long white sleeves and pants and stuff all tucked in. And I guess there was a skunk bothering them, and they started getting angry, and I didn't know that. And one time I went out to look inside the hive, and I got stung like so many times, like on my forehead, and my eyes swelled up so much I couldn't even see. It was, and then it got so itchy. Oh my gosh, but I'm still alive. So, okay, who gets stung by bees? I do. And one time I got stung so many times in the leg, the ankle, like right around there. My foot and leg swelled up so big I couldn't even walk. So that's that. Okay, in every garden plot, there should be at least one colony of bees. I told Anastasia that there are very few people in our society who can communicate with bees. Special training is required, and not everyone is successful. But she replied, "A lot of what you do to maintain bee colonies just gets in the way. Over the past millennia, there have been only two people on Earth who have come close to understanding this unique life form. And who might they be? They are two monks who have since been canonized. You can read about them in your books. They can be found in many monastery archives." Come on now, Anastasia. You read church literature too? Where? When? You don't even have a single book. I have at my disposal a much more complete method of retrieving information. What kind of method? Again, you are talking in circles. After all, you promised me you wouldn't resort to any mysticism or fantasy. I shall tell you about it. I shall even try teaching it to you. You will not understand it right away, but it is simple and natural. Well, okay, so how should bees be kept in a garden plot? All you have to do is build the same kind of hive for them that they would have under natural conditions, and that is it. After that, your only task remaining is to go to the hive and gather part of the honey, wax, and other substances they produce that are so useful for man. Anastasia, that's not simple at all. Who knows what that natural hive should look like? Now, if you could tell me how to do it myself with the materials we all have at our disposal, then that might be something feasible. All right, she laughed. Then you will have to wait a bit. I need to visualize it. I have to see what people in today's world might have on hand, as you say. And where should it be placed so as not to spoil the view? I added. I shall look into that too. She lay down on the grass as she always did, visualizing her, or rather our, life situations. But this time I began to observe her carefully. As she lay on the grass, her arms were stretched out in different directions, with palms upturned. Her fingers were partly curled, and their tips, especially the tips of the four fingers on each hand, were also positioned so that their soft parts faced upward. Her fingers first began to stir a little, but then stopped. Her eyes were closed, her body completely relaxed. Her face, too, appeared relaxed at first, but then a faint shadow of some kind of feeling or sensation moved across it. Later, she explained how seeing at a distance could be practiced by anyone with a particular kind of upbringing. About the beehive, Anastasia had to say the following. You need to make the hive in the shape of a hollow block. You either can take a log with a hole in it, or hollow it out to enlarge the cavity, or use boards from a deciduous tree to make a long, hollow box 120 centimeters long. The boards should be no less than 6 centimeters thick, and the inside measurements of the cavity by at least 40 by 40 centimeters. Triangular strips should be inserted into the corners where the inner surfaces meet to make the cavity somewhat rounded. The strips can be just lightly glued in place, and the bees themselves will permanently cover the board. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. We're going to get into that. If anyone's interested in that, leave a comment below and I can get into that, okay? Because this is, I found it very interesting because I had bees, but this is really getting into it. And to be honest, I'm just not really into reading that. Okay, so let's get to the next part. It's called Hello Morning. Anastasia has developed her morning routine to the conditions of the dacha plot. And maybe it's dacha. You know what? I don't even know. I should have probably figured that out before I started reading. Okay, in the morning, preferably at sunrise, walk out to the garden plot barefoot and approach any plants you like. You can touch them. This does not have to be done in accord with some sort of schedule or ritual to be strictly followed day after day, but simply as one feels moved or as one desires. But it should be done before washing. Then the plants will sense the odors of the substances emitted by the body through the pores of the skin during sleep. If it is warm and there is a small grassy patch close by, and it would be helpful if there were, lie down there and stretch out for 3 or 4 minutes. And if some little bug should happen to crawl onto your body during this time, do not chase it away. Many bugs open the pores on the human body and cleanse them. As a rule, the pores prone to clogging are the ones through which toxins are expelled, thus bringing all sorts of internal ailments to the surface and allowing the person to wash them away. If there is a pond or water on the plot, you should immerse yourself in it. If not, then you can pour water over yourself as you stand barefoot close to the plants and the garden beds. Even better, between the beds. For example, one morning alongside the raspberry bushes, the next by the currant bushes, etc. And after washing, you should not dry off right away. You should shake off the water drops from your hands, spreading them onto the surrounding plants, and use your hands to brush off the water from other parts of your body. After doing this, you can go through the usual procedures of washing and using any conveniences to which you are accustomed. Evening routine. In the evening, before going to bed, it is important to wash your feet. Using water with the addition of a small quantity, a few drops of juice, from saltbush or nettles, and two or the two together. I'm going to say that again. In the evening before going to bed, it is important to wash your feet using the water with the addition of a small quantity, a few drops of juice from saltbush or nettles, or the two together, but no soap or shampoo. After washing your feet, pour the water onto the garden beds. Then it's almost like you wash your feet and you get them dirty again. But anyway, that's just my thought. Because this is what I used to do in the garden. And so I always found that funny. Like I go and I do that, and then I'm walking back to the house and my feet are all dirty again. Okay, so this evening routine is important for two reasons. As the feet perspire, toxins come to the surface, removing internal diseases from the body, and these must be washed away to cleanse the pores. In pouring the remaining water onto the beds, you are giving supplemental information to the microorganisms and plants about your current state of well being. This is very important too. After only receiving this information, can our visible and invisible world around you work out and pick up from the universe and the earth everything it needs for the normal functioning of your body? It will prepare everything by itself is this next one. I'm kind of thinking this is quite a long chapter, and I don't want to get into it. And you know what? I don't even know what it's about. It's about eating, and there's some other stuff in there. Maybe in another, if anybody wants to hear about this, you can maybe leave a comment, or you can either go on my Facebook and leave a comment. I don't know if I see everything from some of the podcasts that I'm at, but that's that. And we can get into that some more. I never really planned for this podcast to be story time. I never really visualized it was going to be me reading out of books. However, I think some of this information is like that's such powerful information. And especially myself moving forward this year, I think that information had to come up in order for me to start implementing these practices, and just even getting younger. I know when I had the bees, I used to eat a lot of bee pollen because that, and like it takes away wrinkles, and just eating it raw. That was my favorite part of having bees. And I don't have bees right now here, but last year, like I still have some of the beehives, and I've got them out in one of the greenhouses. And last year I set out one of the hives. I was hoping to attract it, but I was so busy I didn't really do anything. I think you can rub the inside with what is it? Maybe it's lemon something, maybe. Anyway, I can't think about it right now, but there is an herb that you can put in there and it attracts the bees. Maybe even bee balm. But I'm going to try that next year because I saw at the store when I used to have bees, they cost $165 for a nuke, and they're almost at $300 here now. Like that is incredible. So I'm going to attract some bees. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed the show, and I encourage you all to try this way of gardening. And if you do happen to come across the Ringing Cedars book one, Anastasia, uh, pick it up and read it. They're not that hard to read. Like it's not a super big book. You can get through it quite fast, and it's very enjoyable. And so as you can see, like even just listening to that information, like how would someone make that up? Like I almost feel like certain powers that shouldn't be don't want people to think this is real, because that's not really something that comes out of someone's imagination. I don't think so anyway. And the way he portrays himself in the book, like it just this is to me a real, like this is a real, Anastasia's a real person. So all right, well, we will talk to you guys next week, and we'll see you in the garden. Thank you for joining me at In the Garden with Susan. I hope you enjoyed this episode. That was me reading a book to you. However, wonderful information, and I hope you guys agree. You can find this podcast at Spotify, Radio Public, Podchaser, Headliner, and at my website, www.gardenfairybotanicals.ca. And it's also on the front page now. I put a widget on the front page. As always, I hope to see you next week in the garden.